double digits are what you are striving for when you're in a best practice group and what you will achieve.
So where were we before the better practice?
0 to 2% is where we operated for almost 11 years.
Where are we consistently now?
15 to 17%.
Solid.
Yeah.
And
So
we
big
would never have
difference.
gotten there without our groups.
100%. 100%.
I
We
even
never
said
would have.
that
You're business coaching.
True. Yeah. I even said that early on that I don't know if I can cuss on this podcast, but
Yeah.
I said bullshit to the lady told me I'm gonna get you to double digits. Boy, if she runs into me now, I'm in trouble.
I know. Hi, and thanks again for joining me today on the Lasting Business Solutions podcast, Indy's launchpad to sustain business, growth, success, and leadership. My name is Renee Lucas. I'm your host today, and we're going to be talking about best practice groups and why it's important to be a part of one, no matter what your industry is. I'm joined today with my husband and business partner, Travis Lucas. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
So, Travis, in our first episode, when we were talking about our story and we were giving everybody a heads up of what we've been through as small business owners over the last 20 years, we talked a little bit about best practice groups and how getting into one really was the start of the change of our business. So fast forward 8 years, we're still in best practice groups.
Yes, we are.
What do they do for you now that might be even different from what they did at the beginning?
Probably at the beginning, I wasn't so focused on, the numbers, the KPIs.
Because we didn't know what that meant.
Yes, that is true. So that is ever changing. So it doesn't matter. You can get really good at it, and then something changes. So I can still reach out to our members, the relationships we have, to get those answers.
That's a really good point because we just attended a conference with the Air Conditioning Contractors of America last week. And one of the sessions that we went to was an advanced financials class on balance sheets. And so with a balance sheet, it's not only understanding assets and liabilities, but the ratios between the two, what they mean and how to use them and how to use the trends of those ratios for predictions, different types of predictions in your business. That is something that would have been way over our heads several years ago, right? But now,
I would have closed the book and I'd have Homer Simpson right out into the bushes on that. So.
I'm out. But today, that was very interesting for us. And the first thing that we did was we went back to our mix group, which is the best practice group in that organization, and talked to them about it.
We are implementing it.
Yeah.
Into our our calls now.
Yeah, absolutely. And then next week, you're going to be visiting Galveston, Texas. We're going to be visiting one of the contractors in our mix group.
Love Terry.
Coming for you, Terry.
Coming for you, Terry.
But on the agenda, we've actually added to our financials agenda more time on the balance sheet to discuss, to look at each other's, to see what trends we see in the business and how that can affect our planning for the rest of the year, next year.
They made a real good point in the class that the P&L is a snapshot of right now.
Yeah.
And the balance sheet is for the year.
And what do we tend to think about as business owners right now?
P&L.
Yeah, we don't.
That's literally all I look at because I was lost on the balance sheet.
Well, and I think just business owners in general tend to live in the day. And so they don't always tend to be the greatest planners. They're not always looking ahead. And so if you don't have a group that you're a member of, if you're not attending classes and sessions and conferences like that, you never really get out of today.
You will be stuck in today. You will not be moving forwards.
Yeah.
100%. I would agree with that.
Yeah. So within our best practice groups that we're in, they can have a different look for each one. So we're actually in 4 different best practice groups. And I get people that say all the time to me, why are you in so many groups? Because isn't it redundant?
Well, they're kind of all different.
Oh, they are all
help
different.
us in different facets of the business.
Yeah, and we get very different things out of each group, all of them being an equal benefit in different ways to us.
True.
Right? So if you think about other businesses, other industries, I think a lot of people are in the same boat that we used to be, where we didn't even know these things existed.
There's so many companies out there. You ask about any better business groups, and they look at you funny, and I'm like, how do you not know this? Back up.
We didn't know.
We didn't know it.
No, we didn't know. And if you remember, it was a financial advisor that told us about it.
Yes, not HVAC,
No.
but a financial advisor. So I'm like, what? How would he know?
Right. And so, I think once we did learn more about this best practice group,
Hmm.
we were a little nervous about looking into it at first because you have this like fear of, well, what can I bring to this?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Or I know you had a fear.
I had a fear of I'm like, I don't want someone to see if I didn't know if we were failing really.
Right.
But if we open our books up and they're like, you shouldn't even be in business.
Right.
That's the fear. If someone telling me you shouldn't be in business.
I know. We were at rock bottom, right? And so we
Yeah.
really felt like it can't get any worse than what it is. And so
It,
despite the fears that we had,
yeah, it really couldn't get any worse.
no. And what's somebody going to do? Judge us? We're already crying every day. So you
Yeah.
can't hurt us.
Yeah.
Even though we had that deep seated fear of what does this look like sort of
Yeah.
thing. Now, I think the other thing to be prepared for in some best practice groups, I know for our industry, I can't speak for every industry, but there's a time commitment for this. And so, we have one best practice group that we meet with every single week over Zoom.
Yep.
And there's a commitment to that. Attendance is taken. We're expected to participate. We're expected to have a dashboard prepared with our monthly numbers. There's another best practice in that you're committed to a
Yeah.
biweekly phone call.
Yep.
And again, you participate in that, you come prepared with things to discuss. And then in that particular group, we travel or we host
Yeah.
twice a year
Yeah.
visits to each other's shops. And so it's a time commitment. You've got travel expenses in there, but that's something that the benefits and what we gain out of those visits far outweighs any sort of cost tied to it. Would you agree?
Yes, and I was pretty reluctant at the beginning to even want to spend the money.
Yeah.
The lack of money we had, let's be honest,
Yeah.
of how we're going to spend this money to get into this group to make us better. I'm like, I didn't see past once again today.
Yeah, once again
So,
today,
yeah.
it's really hard, and that's where best practices groups, that's where, they are near and dear to my heart. I recommend them all the time because it really is the first step, in my opinion, in helping contract or not just contractors, business owners, get out of just a day-to-day forecast for themselves, their business, their families, everything, and really start to see ahead. I remember one of the first personal goals that I set for us
Hmm.
was that we would take a 1-week vacation.
After how many years in
It
the
was
business?
a long time.
Yeah.
We were 10 years in, and I remember you saying, "That's not a business goal." And I was like, "Yeah, it is, because right now, we can't leave for a day without feeling like
No.
things would fall apart or without you being on the phone 24/7."
I remember the walking the path in the
Yes,
sand.
yes, yes. And, having a personal goal, the people in our best practice groups helped us achieve that because of the strides that we made in the business. We took those steps to do more than just be in the day to day, which really helped us to be where we are now, which is with a really healthy work-life balance,
Yeah. And
right?
and to this day, I still get calls from our members in our different groups,
Yeah,
especially the ACCA group. Someone's having a hard time on a certain thing, and
yeah.
it's good. It's a great feeling to be able to answer back that I can help them.
How long have you been in the field? Or not in the field, like in this industry?
It'll be 30 years this year.
30 years
Yeah.
this year. And so, it doesn't matter if you are in the trades, it doesn't matter if you're in a professional career, it doesn't matter. When you're in for that long, you're going to experience some burnout along the
Hmm.
way. You're probably going to kind of lose your sense of purpose as your business changes. I know for you, when we put a management team in place, you really struggled a little bit with, well, what do
Well,
I do now?
yeah. What do I do?
Yeah, like who am I now
Yeah.
in our business, that sort of thing. And to have, to be alone with that really sucks. But to have a group that you can rely on, and there's members of our group that were going through the exact same thing as you
At the same time.
at the same time.
Yeah.
And so even within that group, so take the ACCA for a minute. You have this huge organization, and then within that we have our mixed group, which is our
Hmm.
best practice group.
Yep.
And then within that you even had like you have a really tight relationship with a few people within that
Yes.
group who are actually going through the exact same thing that you are.
100%. And it happens a couple times a year. You get that call.
Yeah. Yeah.
and you can help them out. And when you're going through it and they're going through it, you come up with some pretty good ideas how to get out of it, how to get out of that mindset,
Yeah.
how to get out of your headspace of where you are right now.
And I think, like, from a spouse perspective, as your spouse, I wanna be able to do that for you. I wanna be able to lift you up and take you out of there, but really, I can't because I'm not where you are. I haven't been in it for 30 years. I've never been in the position in the business that you're in.
Hmm.
I can't relate. It's impossible for me to relate in the same way that these other people can. It's
Yeah.
really important for you to have that in your life.
Yeah, and I'm glad we have those groups because
Yeah.
you have nobody else. I can come and vent more than a furnace vents in the wintertime to you. So, and it can't fix it.
Right. In the same way, I'm a member of Women's Presidents Organization, WPO, here in
Yeah.
Indianapolis, and it's a women's business group.
Yeah.
And so, we talk about, our wins and our struggles, and, we roundtable different issues that we have in our business. And it's just different when it's a group of women. It's something that you can't really provide in
No,
the same way.
I can't relate at all.
No.
As is when we have the other members of our group, I'm talking to any of them
Yeah.
about things that you may not understand just because of the 30 years.
Yeah.
And it's not that you don't understand. I just the connection there, it's just not there because you've not been there.
And that's okay.
Yeah,
And I
yeah, yeah.
think
100%.
that's what's so good about being a member of these best practice groups,
Yes.
right? Um,
And we're talking across the United States. You
yeah,
can talk to anybody.
and Canada technically.
Canada too. Yeah.
Yeah, I
There's a
know.
couple yeah, the couple Canadian companies we know. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Seek out those best practice groups. A lot of people confuse best practice groups with networking groups. And so
True.
this is not networking at all.
No, this is not networking at all. We are helping each other's business.
Yeah. It's also really important to be in a group with people who are not direct competitors of yours, right? So
Yes.
there are direct competitors, other HVAC companies here in Indianapolis that we're friends with the owners. We
Yeah.
know them, we see them a couple times a year, we might talk on a regular
Yeah.
basis. I mean, there's a handful of companies that we're pretty close with. However, we aren't going to sit down and share financials.
Correct. There's most of the better practice groups, they have a radius
Yes.
mileage that you can't be in the same group. You can't be in the same organization,
Yeah.
which that's great. But yeah, you're not going to sit down and have financial talks with, the company down the road.
Right.
So there's never a conflict.
Right. And
So,
that's very, very important. Now, I would imagine that most industries, blue collar, white collar, does not matter the type
mhm,
of industry, has a best practice group that can be found. However, if you cannot find one, I know that we have done some one-on-one business coaching
mhm,
in the past as well. And there's business coaching looks like so many different things. There are some business coaches that are kind of all around business coaching, and they talk about all aspects of business. You've got really specific, maybe for different divisions in your company, like, sales trainers,
mhm.
or, geared towards management. I know one of the first business coaches that we had, they were financial coaches. And
Yes.
so Vicky and John.
Yep.
And so they really helped us understand advanced financial things in the business, like understanding break even, right? At what point in the month do we hit break even? We had
Yes.
no
We had no
clue
clue.
really what, I mean, you can kind of get the grasp of what that means when you're going to break even in
Yeah.
the month, but we didn't know what to do with that information, how it would affect our business. We didn't know how other companies were using that information. We have an understanding of that now,
Yeah.
which really changes the forecast even mid-month for us sometimes.
Yeah. And they, John and Vicky specialize in that. That's what's great.
Yes. Yes.
So there's so many facets of the business side. And when you look at a business coach, I mean, I would have thought, well, there has to be a heating and air coach.
That's a good point.
It's not.
No.
Business is business. I don't care what you do.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, revenue in, revenue out.
Yeah.
And how do you figure that out? How do you, I guess, unlock that secret of making your business work?
Right.
That's what business coaches are for.
I had somebody tell me once that they would get a new business coach about every 2 years. And I was like, wow, really? Because I think people get a business coach and then they're afraid to say, okay, we've come to the end of the road
Yes.
together and it's time for me to get a new business coach. That is actually a really healthy relationship with a
Yeah.
coach, because not every coach necessarily specializes in everything, right? You may start out with a kind of a general business coach who approaches, as I mentioned, like every aspect of business.
Hmm.
But to really dive in and hone in on a special place, what I was taught was, what's the weakness in your business right now?
Yes.
Yeah, ideally, the weakness in my business today will not be the same weakness 2 years from now.
Yeah.
And so that cycle is generally about, I know for
Yeah.
us, and it's come to be true from what we were taught, it's about 2 years. You'll spend a
Yeah.
couple of years really working, honing in on improving what that weakness was in your building. But when that's no longer a weakness, I promise you'll have a new weakness.
Yeah. They don't go
No,
away.
they don't go away. And as your business grows, they always say, like, what got you here won't get you there. As your business grows, you'll have a new challenge or you'll have a new weakness that pops up. So then it's finding a business coach that specializes in that. You work on that for a
Yeah.
while and then you go from there.
Do you think a lot of people have any idea what a better practice group does? I mean, when we
Well,
got in,
maybe
I
not.
mean, I probably not. When we got in, I think it was just, well, I'm going to work on these numbers,
Hmm.
but it's so much more than that.
So let's go through when we visit
Yep.
another HVAC company, right, with our group. And when we're in there, walk through kind of a broad overview of that agenda. It's three
Okay.
days.
3 days. So we make the owner leave.
Hmm.
Some of the owners we've dealt with like to weasel around and stay in the building
We're like, bye.
because they want to listen. Because we're interviewing employees.
Yeah.
We're sitting down interviewing employees. We're doing ride-alongs. We're looking at the building.
Hmm.
What are your processes? Are we looking for wasted time? We're looking for how can I get you more efficient?
Hmm.
Those are the meat and potatoes of the thing because most owners have no clue what their employees are thinking on a daily basis.
Well, so last episode, Heather was here with me.
Yep.
And so we talked about working for companies that have a strong purpose and core values
Mhm.
versus a company that doesn't. And she talked about it feels chaotic. It feels like you're just there, like you're not working towards anything. I guarantee you the owners of those businesses have no idea that their employees feel like that.
We've went to a couple shops and their employees ready to leave and the owner had no clue.
Yeah, had no idea. Thought everything
Now,
was
how
fine.
valuable is that?
Yeah. Because then you can address the issue. In many cases, they're really good employees, right? They're
Yeah.
just not satisfied with something, or it's not bad enough for people to have the uncomfortable conversation. They just leave.
Yes, they just don't show up.
Right.
Doing the interviews with the employees gains so much vital information for the owner,
Yeah. And you'll be
and
surprised at how much they open up.
they do open up.
Yeah.
So that going to that, our interview process, it's really good information. But then we dive in after that. That section's over. We go over financials,
Hmm.
and then the owner leaves again. Then we start building a business plan for what we saw,
Yeah.
and then we get to bring them back in on the hot seat, and we show them the information.
Yeah.
And then what happens from there is they either are going to take and run with it,
Or they're
or
not.
they're not.
Yeah. Or they're not. And
And
it's going to stay like
the
it is.
best owners are
Yeah.
going to take and run with it and find out what can I do better.
How vulnerable do you have to be to have people come into your shop and evaluate your day-to-day processes, talk to your
It
employees? Like,
How many weeks before they were coming, I was really, really nervous.
yeah, yeah, we've hosted that once, and it is, and you do you do everything to like
Clean
try
up,
and make sure everything's cleaned up and put away. Yeah,
push the stuff around the corner, sweep up, make it look good on
I know.
on the surface.
Yeah, we got it together. We got it
Yeah,
together, but
and
you
then
know,
they find the holes.
and there's always going to be holes. And I tell you, our team now, especially like our team that's been through this
Mhm.
before, they'll say like, "Hey, when's your mixed group coming back?"
They're asking. I'm like, I think we're maybe a year and a half out.
Yeah, we're due pretty soon
So,
to have them back in. And it doesn't always have to be employee related. Like we visited a shop once and they had really outgrown their building. And so when we went there, we were like, I mean, it was a $10 million company that was operating out of like basically a house.
well, and when we rolled up, and I'm like, you're pumping 10 million out of this,
Yes.
and they were,
Yeah. And it was tight inside. But I
but
mean, they were in it in the day to day and they just didn't see it, right?
and then they got a bigger building.
Yes, and so we actually laid out as part of our trip there, the business plan that we had, we laid out like, hey, this is what a new space could look like. This is where you could be, what you could do. And they built it.
They
They
did,
did
and
it.
I'm like, that I'm talking
It's
like,
amazing.
there can be little things in your business, this was major,
Yeah, this was a big one.
and they did it. So,
Yeah.
congrats to them because it put them at the next level.
100%. And that's what I was like, even in the community, they're perceived differently than that they can handle things.
Do you remember when we pulled up?
The
Not
scrapyard?
Mount Copper?
Yes.
Mount Scrap Co I don't know what I called it, but it was
Yeah.
almost as high as their garage.
Yeah, there was
And
just
I'm
in the
like,
side yard.
"What is that?"
Yeah.
"Well, we get that cut down eventually." And I'm like, "Well, that's not good."
No. And think about too, like no matter what your business is, as a business owner, you want to provide a high quality service to your clients, right? Do you think people are really going to perceive that you provide a high quality service if you don't appear to be high quality yourself?
100%. One of our, members, uh, he's he comes when he comes to the shop, his agenda is, "How do you look?
Yes.
How do your vans look?
Yes.
If they do not look good, I'm not gonna buy from you because you're not put together. Because if you look
Exactly.
like that, what are you gonna do to my system?
Exactly.
How are you gonna install my system? How are you gonna work
Exactly.
on my system?"
Right.
So, if you're not put together, your vehicles are not put together, your building's not put together, that just devalues you.
So take a different industry, whether it be say it's marketing or say it's a financial advisement or something like that. If I would get somebody that I was meeting with and I came in and they were disheveled and they had papers falling out of folders and they
Mhm.
sat down and then they spilled coffee on stuff, and what I would just be like, "Oh my gosh, if you can't organize yourself, how could I ever trust you to organize my financial portfolio or to organize like the marketing for my business?" You've immediately lost credibility to me because of how you just presented yourself. Well, sometimes as a business owner, there's a gazillion things on our plate.
And that's one of that goes to the bottom.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, I made it on time, right? I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm prepared. I'm prepared. I just don't appear to be. And so, in that case, like, what's that really doing to your business? In a best practice group,
They
you
see
could
it.
have somebody see that.
They see it and
Yeah.
they tell you, and then it comes the realization, you better do something about it.
Yeah, clean that up.
Yes.
Here's what this is gonna look like. But it's not only just, clean that up. Hey, here's what a plan looks like. Maybe you need a different morning routine.
Mhm.
Maybe you need a different, instead of using a file system, maybe we need to move to a digital system.
If we come to your business and we find 10 things, you eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Oh, yeah.
You pick the number one priority,
Yeah.
get that off your list and move to the next one. I think that's where a lot of business owners, they get brain fog
Mhm.
because if we show up and I've got a laundry list 15 things long, where do I start?
Yeah.
Well, your other members are going to help you prioritize.
Yes. And
This
make a plan.
make a plan, but prioritize, yeah, absolutely, make a plan. That's why better practice groups are so invaluable.
We just had a member of a group that sent out there was a change, something's being kind of put on hold and reevaluating.
Mhm.
And he sent a message out to the group and said, "Hey, didn't know if everybody saw this," and sent a link to the article. We didn't know about it yet.
No.
And so later that day, we actually saw it, but we heard it first from our best practice group.
Yeah, and our best practice group, we've got different regions. We have New York City, we have 3 in Texas, we have 1 in Tennessee, we got 1 out in Missouri.
Yeah.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
Therefore, we'll get information from them we don't know about. They get information that they don't know about.
Right.
That's why it's so, and I can't say it enough. It's why it's so invaluable.
I think that there are so many opportunities that you may be presented with from um, best practice groups as well. So I know just some of the conferences that we've attended, there have been some fantastic keynote speakers or sessions that are led by either peers or, leaders across the nation or
Mhm.
whatever. I mean, the things that we have learned have just been invaluable. And we are actually starting to take some of our team to these conferences with us, to these sessions with us. We have access to some additional trainings and webinars that we wouldn't have if we weren't involved in these groups.
Now, are these groups all just business, 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 or is there any fun time when you have these relationships now?
Well, I mean, you can always fit fun time in.
I wanted to bring that up because the relationships you get, they're darn near friends.
Yes.
I wouldn't say darn near friends. They are friends.
Yeah, they are. One of our group members lives in Tennessee, but his daughter has a cheerleading competition every January up here in Indianapolis. Every January, we meet up with them and their family for
Yes.
dinner up here. And it's, of course, you talk a little bit of business, but it's not just all business that we're doing
And this
and things like
certain
that.
member, he loves bourbon and I love bourbon.
So
So that's how we connect, business and bourbon. So that might be an
anyway,
episode. That might be an
it
episode.
could be next January. Tony's coming
Business and
on, and
bourbon.
we're gonna do a business and bourbon section. What would you say if you had to list like the top 3 things that you feel like you gain? And I would also challenge you and say, what do you feel like you're able to give
Hmm.
back? What would that be over, the last 10 years?
I would say probably number one for me being in the field. I'm near and dear to install.
Mhm.
I try to help out in service. I try to stay in my lane, but I would say processes. I built a really robust process in our company
Yeah.
with install. So I would say processes
So
because
that's something you've been able to share and learn,
yeah, and
I would
I've
say,
got a
yeah.
list. I when I build them, I've got this list, and any company that wants to come to our shop, and they could be a down the road shop. I give them the keys. Most people probably won't do it
Mm,
because it was very tough, but the process of the install and the process of the service, I probably picked that up. That was my number one.
yep.
Number two was the numbers because our first meeting ever, we got called out on our equipment cost.
It's too high,
I
I
had
realize.
no clue. I'm like, okay, whatever that
Yeah.
means. Well, it was really bad.
Yeah.
So the numbers were second. Third was probably, I guess it wasn't so much a business thing, but the camaraderie that if I've got a problem in business,
Mhm.
I can call any member I want.
Yeah.
I have access to all these people that probably have already gone through it. They got my back.
I would completely agree with you. I always say even going to conferences or, or mixed group meetings, the networking that you do, and and mind you, remember we just said best practice groups is not the same thing as networking for your business,
But you
right?
network at the places.
With other professionals in your industry.
Yes.
So for us, that's contractors, but
Yeah.
whatever your profession is, you're going to network. And so, say you're a photographer, you're going to network with other photographers in other regions.
Hmm.
And even though your market might be different, or maybe one specializes in family photos and one specializes in business photos, you both still run a business.
And you both have cameras and stuff. It's
Yeah, the business part of it isn't different,
no,
right? And we hear all the time people say, well, that won't work in my market.
that won't work on my
That
market.
one, it
It
will.
will.
Yeah,
That's an excuse.
okay, I'm gonna go off for a minute. I can't remember the guy's name, but it's the box story. It's the girl that comes in and she's afraid of dying in a box. And so, do you know what I'm
Okay.
talking about?
I must have missed that
Okay,
one.
I'm gonna show it to you later. But
Okay.
the whole thing is like, why are you scared of it? It was stop it. And so that's what I'm gonna say. It's like,
Oh,
just stop it.
yes, just stop
Yes,
it.
just stop it. And so if you think that it's not the same in your market, stop it because it is.
That's just an excuse to try to be the same as you are.
Yes,
You don't
and
wanna
not
put the
make any
work in, that's
changes.
all it
Yeah,
is.
yeah. So going back, okay, I got off
You did go off
right there.
tangent.
Going back into 3, the financials obviously were huge. I mean,
Yeah.
we've said before we were operating at a 0 to 2% net profit. Didn't
Whoa.
even realize
Well,
it.
hold on.
Yeah, for
0
the
to 2?
first
I
10
don't think
years.
I even noticed that
No, you didn't.
in our industry. So, to give a perspective in
Yeah.
our industry, what's average?
So actually 2 to 4% is average in our industry. However, double digits are what you are striving for when you're in a best practice group and what you will achieve.
So, where were we before the better practice?
0 to 2% is where we operated for almost 11 years.
Where are we consistently now?
15 to 17%.
Solid.
Yeah.
And
So
we
big
would never have
difference.
gotten there without our groups.
100%.
I
100% we
even
never
said
would have.
that
Yeah, business coaching.
Drew, yeah, I even said that, early on that I don't know if I can cuss on this podcast, but
Yeah.
I said bullshit to the lady told me I'm gonna get you to double digits.
Mhm.
Boy, if she runs into me now, I'm in trouble.
I know
So,
because yeah, you tried to call her out.
I
You were the person that said that'll never work in my market.
yeah, I was. Negative Nancy?
Yeah.
Debbie Downer?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So those are probably like
You got one more though.
absolutely reaching out. So in my women's business group,
Mhm.
we roundtable especially issues. So we have a specific update that we provide at the beginning of every single meeting, and then we'll pull issues from that. And the things that I have learned, the things that I've been able to contribute to help others, and the things that when it's been my issue that we've
Mhm.
roundtabled, oh my gosh, the ideas that we've had, the people that check in on top of that is just invaluable. So, Travis, to wrap up here, let's talk for just a minute about how to find a best practice group if you're not familiar with what one might be in your industry?
I would say
I'd say Google.
you're gonna have to Google, or you're gonna have to go to some local you're gonna have to go to some local meetings of for us, it's HVAC. There's gotta be something in your city
Mhm.
that's put on with multiple companies. Someone there knows about groups.
Yeah. I would take the time to do some searches
Yep.
to see what you can find online. So, are there events in town? So, within the big national organizations, there are sometimes like local chapters. And
Mhm.
so that's our industry, but I don't know if it's the same for other industries. But you can search for different types of events or just put in, like, I mentioned photography earlier, so I'm just going to stick with that. Like photography best practice groups,
Mhm.
Indiana or nationwide or whatever that may be. I would start there with just Googling what can I find?
Just type it in, because every time we're at a conference with our group, how many other things are going on at conferences?
Oh,
We just got back from one. How many other badges did you see
yeah.
that weren't it
Just
wasn't
3 in our hotel.
yes, there were 3 in a hotel, and there
Yeah.
probably were more.
Maybe start even
Start a
with a
conference.
conference, because if you can get to a conference or some sort of educational event,
They're
then you've
usually
got
they're usually set up there.
yeah, there's usually an expo hall where
Yep.
you'll have like a small group of people that's attending that class or that conference that you can then start networking with them. Do you guys belong to any best practices groups? Have you heard of anything? I would also go to social media. You never know within
Yeah.
like Facebook groups. I'll use Facebook as an example because I'm a member of several Facebook forums for contractors.
Mhm.
And so within there, then you start meeting people. So, social media, Googling, conferences, classes, educational events, find anything that you can and attend something.
Yeah, chamber, in your local
Oh,
chamber.
that's a great idea.
Yeah, your
Yeah.
local chamber would work.
You never know who you'll meet in there that might know of a group or a best practice group.
And ultimately, if you're struggling in areas or you feel like you're struggling everywhere, you have to look at a group to help you.
Take the time to look and to find one. If you cannot find one, then I would start with business coaching.
Yes.
And so look at and like you said, Travis, earlier, is don't get hung up on it like it has to be an HVAC business coach.
Mhm.
We have had business coaches that have specialized in the trades, but we've also had business coaches that have not, and both have been very valuable.
It doesn't matter. Every business has your gross margins, your
Mhm.
overheads, your net profit.
Mhm.
That doesn't change.
Yeah.
It just happens to be we use different things than you do.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You got to be committed, willing to probably travel,
Yep.
willing to spend some money. You're going to have to come off some money to make more money down the road when you finally find this group.
But just like anything else, what you invest should come back just twofold, right?
At
Like it should
least
just,
twofold.
yeah. I mean, what you gain out of it should be way more than the investment that you
And
have into
and
it.
I can promise you the groups we got into kind of skyrocketed.
Changed our lives.
Yeah.
Changed our lives.
We got
Well,
that week vacation. Now it's actually
yes.
can be longer than that now.
Yes, we've met our goals.
Yes.
We've met our goals and continue to make new ones.
Well,
Yeah.
hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I think it does. Thank you so much for joining me today as we discussed best practice groups and what they can do for your business. Join us next time on Lasting Business Solutions Podcast.